Welcome to Transforming Human Consciousness. I'm Keyvan, your host, and this program is sponsored by the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Claremont. Over 150 years ago, Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith, introduced many new ideas to the consciousness of humanity. Maybe at the time these ideas seemed idealistic, but more and more today, people of the world are coming to recognize the significance and the importance of the teachings of Baha'u'llah to the progress of an ever-advancing civilization. Today, the Baha'i Faith is second most widespread religion throughout the world, next to Christianity. The pivot of the teachings of the Baha'i Faith is the oneness of all humankind. Baha'is believe that world order can only be founded on the unshakable consciousness of the oneness of mankind, a spiritual truth which all the human sciences confirm. Psychology, anthropology, physiology recognizes only one human species, albeit infinitely varied in the secondary aspects of life. Recognition of this truth requires abandonment of prejudice of every kind: race, color, creed, nation, sex, degree of material civilization, everything which enables people to consider themselves superior to others. The reality that we have one human world is a beautiful reality, and some of us experience that. Today I have a guest that I'd like to introduce to you, who is a speech pathologist, who one of the things that she does travels around the world. Her name is Darleen Tillman, and I'd like to welcome you. Hi, Keyvan. It's so good to have you here. I know as a part of your profession, you work with
patients that have cleft palate.
Right, and children particularly.
Particularly children, because it's a congenital defect.
Right.
It happens at birth.
Okay, and which I understand, not just you do the work with children here in the United States, in the community, I think you work with the hospital, but also you take that farther than here and travel around with it.
Yes,
Go ahead.
3 years ago, I was given an opportunity to become a part of a group called Caring for Kids, which is a organization made up of professionals in the medical field: a plastic surgeon, orthodontist, several speech pathologists, and we on an annual basis travel to Kathmandu, Nepal, where we are helping them to another group there to develop a cleft palate program there in Nepal. In Nepal, as well as in other Asian populations, the incidence of cleft is about 1 in every 700 live births, which is considered very high, more than in other areas of the world. And unfortunately, there is very little resources to be able to help, which is a surgically completely correctable problem, but there's not enough professionals there trained in this area of surgery, or allied professionals such as speech pathologists, orthodontists, to help to be able to correct this problem.
Is this a humanitarian gesture, or is it?
This is a completely voluntary program. In fact, even though many of the professionals work at the same hospital that I work at, we don't receive any extra time from our jobs or any money from our jobs in order to go there. We use our own, financial resources, have fundraisers, things of that nature, to raise the money in order to be able to go.
How many years have you been?
For the past 3 years. Yeah, for the past 3 years.
Which is interesting. I know you found out about the Baha'i Faith not very many years ago. Is that right?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And before that time, I had not even heard the word Baha'i.
Even though you had traveled around the world also.
Actually, I had heard about the Baha'i Faith. I had gone to what's called a fireside, where they just basically discuss the Baha'i Faith, and you have an opportunity to ask questions about the Baha'i Faith. And after that time, I had taken my first trip to Nepal, and my first trip outside of the greater part of the United States. I had once been to Jamaica, but really traveling to a place very much different from what I'm used to in terms of lifestyle and things of that nature. And at that time, I had been hearing these concepts after going to this fireside about the oneness of humanity, that all people are the same, that all these types of things, and that the Baha'i Faith, that no matter where you went in the world, it was exactly the same. And so I had these concepts in my mind, but I had not actually become a Baha'i yet. And I traveled to Nepal, and one of the things that stuck in my mind was that they stated that all of the prophets of God were all connected to one another, and that each of those separate religions that have evolved all have a connection to one another. And I didn't know anything about the Hindu faith or about the Buddhist faith. And when I was in Nepal, it's number one religion in Nepal is Hindu, and second to that is Buddhist. And so it was very interesting to me to see how the people lived their lives, and how their spirituality permeated, the things that they did and how they interacted with one another. In fact, in Nepal, the greeting that they have to greet one another is namaste, which means I salute the God in you. And I purchased several books on the Buddhist faith and on the Hindu faith just to understand, and I saw those trends of commonality that went along with what my background was as a Christian, and it was very interesting to me, eye-opening.
Darlene, we're going to come back and continue our conversation, but we're going to see small footage of a similar project in Africa, with the women in Africa and the empowerment of the women, and come back after that, and we're going to continue our conversation as what you have done and how these projects throughout the globe are connected with one another and where we're going with it. So for our audience, please stay tuned, and we shall be back after viewing this footage from the project in Africa.
The development of folk arts for expansion and consolidation has been encouraged in the Rizwan message. Traditional arts can also be an instrument for improving the general living conditions of communities, as recently demonstrated in several Akamba villages in the Kitui region in central Kenya. The Matiniani Women's Project was initiated by 3 Baha'i women in a rural area still reeling from a devastating 2-year drought. After taking inventory of their own skills, the decision was made to develop the traditional skills of weaving, which have long been used in the production of beautiful baskets from the area. With modest aid from development grants, spinning and weaving centers have been set up in several villages, producing artfully woven tapestries, which are being sold in Africa, Europe, and North America. Local artists created the designs using traditional motifs with a sensitivity to the tastes of the international marketplace. Raw material comes from the sisal plant, which is plentiful in the area. The leaves are first split into fine strands of fiber. Carding removes knots and tangles from the sisal, which can then be woven into a strong thread. High-quality color-fast dyes are imported from Europe to create the bright, saturated colors favored by the Akamba artisans. Other measures are also being taken to improve the quality of life in the area. This village health center was recently completed and has begun to deliver rudimentary health services to mothers and children in the surrounding area. Other sister initiatives are producing honey, cooking oil, baked goods and candles on a small scale. A newer project has been launched to produce dried fruit. Mangoes are very abundant in the area, but only during a short harvest season. Without means for preservation, most of the fruit will go to waste. These ingenious solar dryers have been designed and manufactured using local craftsmen. Mangoes are gathered each morning and the thin slices are placed on large drying screens prior to insertion into the large solar drying ovens. The ovens are reoriented towards the sun throughout the daylight hours and are efficient enough to complete the entire process in one day. The dried mangoes are then hand-packed and sold in the market. Over the past 7 years, these projects have helped improve the lives of about 4,000 people. Life is still hard, but household incomes have risen by up to 400%. Reported usage of alcohol is down. The status of women in the community has been raised, and there are now at least 5 strong and active local spiritual assemblies in the area. Motivated by a selfless spirit of service, the Kitui projects have been singled out for recognition as an exemplary approach that nurtures a balance of material and spiritual development. Perhaps above all else, the Kitui projects illustrate the great power of grassroots initiative as an instrument for social change, for building community and developing individual human potential, the bedrock processes in the construction of a new world order.
Welcome back to Transforming Human Consciousness. We're going to continue our conversation with Darleen Tillman, who is a speech pathologist, language and speech pathologist, who has a wonderful contribution to make to the empowerment of people across our globe. We were talking about your travels to Nepal. First you found out about the Baha'i Faith, then you went to Nepal, and then you returned.
After my return, I had an opportunity to stop, since I had layovers, my airplane flight, I also had an opportunity to stop in Thailand and get to know briefly some of the people there. And again, that same thought or feeling about the oneness of God, you know, the oneness of religion really started to really sink into me, and it all seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And at that time, I become a Baha'i, basically from a lot of study, a lot of reading, understanding a little bit more about other religions and their faith, and seeing that the continuum.
Did you visit, did you see any Baha'is in Thailand? Were there any?
On my second trip to Nepal, I made a point to make sure that I contact some of the Baha'is there, very warm, gracious, wonderful people. And again, I could see that the Baha'i Faith and the way that it was presented to me here in the United States was identical when I went to Nepal. In terms of obviously people's lives are a little different, how their mode of transportation a little different, but in terms of the warmth of their heart and the genuine nature of the people, I found it to be very similar. And also had an opportunity to go to Thailand. I was in Bangkok actually 2 years in a row, and I stayed at the Baha'i Center that they had there in Bangkok. And very, very warm people, and just really got to see that oneness of humanity and see that it's truly.
Darlene, from your perspective, from you as a professional African American woman living in perhaps the most advanced country in the world, yet struggling with the issue of racism in this country. You travel and you bring people together. Where do you find, as a society, we're going? What are some of the areas that gives you hope? What are some of the things that kind of frustrates you?
Well, some of the things that give me hope is just being able to see how, since the time of my grandmother growing up and being my age, and myself, and the whole idea, I mean, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and the fact that, I can say that I traveled around the world, I think certainly in itself shows that there are things that are changing within this society, and that it's more acceptable, for that people are starting to break down those barriers of racism and class and be able to see that people are people, they have good things to offer. Regardless of their race or their cultural background,
So are we making improvements?
I think that we're definitely making improvements. I think they're small steps, but they were definitely making improvements.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you have an adopted 5-year-old.
In the process of trying to adopt a 5-year-old. Yes.
She's very active and outspoken and all those things. Do you see a different experience for her as an African American child than you experienced yourself?
Well, most definitely, I think that her experience will be much different than mine. I make a point of making sure that she is around people of culture, diversity. There's lots of diversity in her life in terms of people's professions, economic levels, in terms of people and their ethnic origins. Make a point of making sure that she gets to see people.
I know that you live in an area where predominantly everybody is Hispanic, almost predominantly, and does that limit you as far as what you can provide for her, as far as socializing?
Well, I think Taylor and I see it really as a wonderful opportunity, like one, to learn Spanish. We're in the process of learning that, and being a Baha'i, right now I am the only Baha'i in Huntington Park, and we have lots of activities that are going on right now in the city of Huntington Park as an opportunity for people to get to know about the Baha'i faith and to embrace that if it touches their heart and they feel moved to do that.
Do you as a Baha'i, do you have to stay within your neighborhood and community as far as the religious activities is concerned, or can you mingle and mix and travel around?
Oh, well, I've traveled around, and in fact, whenever I travel someplace, the first thing that I do is find out where the Baha'is are living and get in contact with them. Even when I just go up to Sacramento to visit my grandmother, I contact
because
them.
I know the first time I saw you actually was in Monrovia. We met in Monrovia, which is a neighboring community, community. So mingling and mixing and socializing with communities around you seems like you're not alone by yourself in Huntington Park by any time.
No, not at all. I have lots of neighboring communities, Baha'i communities, that are coming out to Huntington Park to assist with this project of basically just getting the word out about the Baha'i faith from Monrovia, from Claremont, from Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles area.
Any future plans of traveling different places?
Well, right now we still have this ongoing project in Nepal trying to help the medical professionals there with their training in order. The goal is for them to be able to run their cleft palate program on their own.
Which is the best of development, really.
Right, teach them
So they won't
how to fish, don't give them fish.
Exactly, exactly. I really wish you the best, Darlene, in everything you do. Your contribution to the whole cause of development, truly, that's what it is, throughout the globe, wherever you go, and taking your gifts and sharing it with others and making it a better place, making it a more harmonious, unified world, so all our children could benefit from it. Thanks again for coming, and for our audience, I thank you for being with us. If you have any questions or comments about our program, please contact us through Baha'i Faith, P.O. Box 686, Claremont, California. Our phone number is 909-626-2569. For Transforming Human Consciousness, thank you for being with us.